My own house key. It wouldn't turn. I stood on my front porch, my suitcase at my feet, feeling confused and a little foolish. I rang the bell, and my son, Ben, opened the door. He didn't look happy to see me. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. Behind him, his wife Jenna wasn't even trying to hide her anger. And past her, my living room was filled with cardboard boxes, my furniture, my memories, all being packed away. "Clara," Jenna snapped, her voice sharp. "What are you doing here? Your bus left an hour ago." She said it like I was the one trespassing. That look on her face, the boxes, that wasn't a misunderstanding. That was a plan. But that explosion on my doorstep was just the final crack in a foundation that had been crumbling for years. That crumbling had been going on for years, ever since my husband, Arthur, passed. The cracks were small at first. Little moments where I could feel I wasn't Clara anymore. I was the widow, a problem to be managed, not a person to be loved. This trip, this was supposed to be my fresh start. My first ever cross-country bus tour, all by myself, to finally see the Grand Canyon. I was a bundle of nerves, but it was the first good kind of nervous I'd felt in years. Just as I was zipping up my suitcase, Ben and Jenna stopped by to wish me well. Jenna was too helpful. She bustled into my living room, straightening pillows that were already straight. "Don't you worry about a thing, Clara," she said, her voice dripping with that fake sweet tea sympathy. "We'll keep an eye on the house. You just go have fun." Her eyes weren't looking at me. They were scanning the room, taking inventory. Ben just stood by the door, his hands jammed into his pockets, staring at his shoes. "Yeah, Mom," he muttered. You deserve this." He looked less like a son wishing his mother goodbye and more like a man walking into the principal's office. I should have listened to that feeling in my gut. I should have known, but I didn't listen. I hugged them goodbye. Jenna's hug was stiff and quick, like she was touching something unpleasant. I picked up my suitcase and walked to the Uber I'd ordered. As the car pulled away from the curb, I tried to shake off that heavy feeling. I watched my little house, the one Arthur and I bought when Ben was just a toddler, get smaller in the window. I told myself it was just nerves, 68 years old and finally doing something for me. The driver was quiet, which I was grateful for. I looked out the window at the familiar streets, the strip malls, the high school football field. I was on my way. I was really doing it. I did a final mental checklist. Suitcase? Checked. Bus ticket? In my purse. Medication? In the side pocket. Wallet? Yes. Arthur's. My hand flew to my neck. Nothing. I ripped open my purse, my heart suddenly doing a drum solo against my ribs. Not in the coin pocket. Not in the zipper compartment. I hadn't just forgotten my lipstick. I'd forgotten it. Arthur's dog tag. His original, worn-down silver tag from Vietnam. It wasn't in the jewelry box with the nice things. It lived on my nightstand, and when I traveled even just to my sister's house, I wore it. I couldn't breathe. It felt like I'd left a part of my body behind. I could still feel the weight of it in my hand, the day he came home. He was so thin, and his eyes had a shadow I'd never seen before. He took the tag from his own neck and placed it in my palm. "This thing always brought me home, Clara," he'd whispered, his voice rough. "It'll keep you safe." And it had. It was my good luck charm, my anchor. The idea of going to the Grand Canyon, of being so far from home without it. I couldn't. It was impossible. "Sir," I said, my voice high and tight. The driver glanced at me in the rearview mirror. "Sir, I'm so sorry, but you have to turn around. You have to take me back." The driver must have seen the panic in my eyes because he just nodded and pulled a U-turn. "Forgot something important, huh?" he asked gently. "More than you know," I whispered, my hands twisting in my lap. The ride back was agonizing. Every red light felt like a personal insult. My mind was so focused on that little piece of silver, on the thought of it sitting alone on my nightstand, that it took me a full second to process what I was seeing when we finally turned onto my street. My quiet, sleepy suburban street, with its oak trees and manicured lawns, now had a giant U-Haul van parked in front of my house. Not just parked. It was backed up my driveway, its huge back door rolled open like a gaping mouth. "Huh," the driver said. "Looks like someone's moving." My blood went cold. "No," I said, my voice barely audible. "Stop here." "It's a neighbor," I told myself. "It has to be." Maybe the Hendersons are finally selling. But the truck was parked in my driveway. I paid the driver. I think I just threw a 20 at him. I don't even remember, and stumbled out of the car, dragging my suitcase. My legs felt like they were filled with wet cement. And that's when I saw them. Two men I'd never seen before walked out of my front door, carrying my dining room chairs. Not just any chairs. The oak chairs Arthur and I had spent an entire summer refinishing, the ones with the little hand-carved acorns on the back. My breath caught in my chest. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a neighbor. I ran. I abandoned my suitcase on the sidewalk and ran up my own front walk, a path I'd walked 10,000 times. It felt alien, like a stranger's home. "Hey!" I yelled, my voice cracking. "What are you doing? Put that down!" The men just looked at me, confused, and kept walking to the truck. I fumbled in my purse for my key, my hands shaking so badly I could barely grab it. I jammed it into the lock of my own front door. It wouldn't turn. I pushed. I jiggled it. Nothing. It just scraped against the metal, a cold, empty sound. They had changed the locks. A wave of dizziness hit me, so strong I had to grab the railing. They had changed the locks on my house, while I was supposed to be on a bus. The anger hit me then. A pure, white-hot flash that burned away the shock. I balled up my fist and pounded on my own door. I didn't just knock. I hammered on it, my bag still clutched in my other hand. I heard the click of the deadbolt from the inside. The door swung open, and there they were. My son, Ben, stood there, pale as a sheet, and behind him his wife, Jenna, with a look of pure, undiluted fury. "Clara," Jenna snapped, her voice sharp as glass. "What are you doing here? Your bus left an hour ago." She said it like I was the one who was wrong, like I was the one breaking in. I didn't answer her. I couldn't. I just pushed past them, right into my own living room. It wasn't my living room anymore. It was a warehouse. My life was being sorted into piles. Cardboard boxes were stacked everywhere, thick black marker scrawled on their sides. Storage. Donate. And one, sitting right on my mahogany coffee table, that just said, "Sell." My sofa, the one I'd sat on with Arthur for 30 years, was covered in a plastic sheet. The lamp he loved, the one he bought at a flea market, was gone. The entire room smelled like stale cardboard and betrayal. "What is this?" I finally said, my voice so low it barely sounded like me. "Ben, what is this?" Ben wouldn't look at me. He just stared at a spot on the wall, his face crumbling. "Mom, we were gonna tell you. It's complicated." "Complicated." Jenna's voice cut through the air. She stepped forward, crossing her arms. The sweet, concerned daughter-in-law was gone. This woman. This was a stranger. "Don't mom her, Ben." She wouldn't understand. "Understand what?" I turned on her. "Understand what, Jenna? Why you're emptying my house? Why you changed my locks?" "It's what's fair," she shouted. The word echoed in the half-empty room. It's what's fair. Do you have any idea what we're going through? Do you? Of course you don't." She started pacing, her hands flying as she talked. "Ben lost his job. His job, Clara. His 6-figure job. Gone. We're drowning. We're about to lose our house. The house I decorated. While you just sit here." She gestured around the room, at the boxes, at me, with such contempt. "You just sit here, all alone, in this big 3-bedroom house you don't even need. All these empty rooms. All this stuff. It's a waste." "A waste," I whispered. "This is my home." "It's an asset," she shot back. "It's money we need. We're your family, Clara. Or does that not mean anything to you? We're about to be on the street, and you're sitting on a gold mine. This house is our future." "So, you decided to—" "What? Steal it?" Ben finally spoke, his voice cracking. "Mom, no, not steal. We were just gonna organize things, sell some of the clutter, help you downsize." "Clutter." I looked at the box marked sell. "You call my life clutter?" Jenna rolled her eyes. "Oh, stop it. You're being dramatic. It's just stuff. Memories don't pay the bills, Clara. We need this. We need it more than you do." There it was. The truth. Not a cry for help. Not a desperate last resort. It was a judgment. They had weighed my life, my memories, my home, and found them less important than their mortgage. My son, my only child, had looked at his grieving mother and seen not a person, but an asset to be liquidated. That line hung in the air, heavy and poisonous. We need it more than you do. But suddenly, I wasn't listening. I didn't care about the U-Haul, or the boxes marked sell. I didn't care about the sofa or the chairs. All of that was just stuff. There was only one thing, the only thing that had brought me back. I turned and walked away from them. I left them standing in the ruins of my living room, and I walked down the hall to my bedroom. My heart was a cold, hard knot in my chest. My bedroom. My sanctuary. It was ransacked. My closet doors were thrown open, clothes pulled from their hangers. My dresser drawers were yanked out, my socks and sweaters in a pile on the floor like trash. And on my bed, my simple wooden jewelry box, the one Arthur had made for me in high school woodshop, was overturned. Its contents were scattered across my quilt, my grandmother's brooch, the simple pearl earrings I wore at Ben's wedding. Decades of small, simple treasures. My hands, trembling, went straight to the pile. I didn't care about the pearls. I sifted through the tangle of chains and costume jewelry, my breath coming in short, sharp gasps. No, 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 no. It wasn't there. I lunged for my nightstand, the place it was supposed to be. I yanked the drawer open. Empty. I turned around. Ben and Jenna had followed me, and they were standing in the doorway, watching me. My voice didn't sound like mine. It was a low, shaking, cold thing I had never heard before. Ben! He flinched, like I'd struck him. Where is it, Ben? What, Mom? The jewelry? It's all there. We were just sorting. Jenna stepped forward, her voice sharp and defensive. It's just costume jewelry, Clara. It's not worth anything. No. I couldn't take my eyes off my son, the man he had become. Where is Arthur's dog tag? Ben's face went from pale to gray. He looked like he was going to be sick. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Jenna scoffed. She actually rolled her eyes and let out a short, sharp laugh. Oh, for heaven's sake, Clara. That's what you're worried about? We're talking about our home, and you're worried about that. I just stared at her. What? She said, defiant. That old piece of junk? I pawned it. The world. It stopped. The ringing in my ears was so loud, I could barely see her. We needed gas money for the U-Haul, she said, shrugging, as if she were talking about the weather. It was just sitting there. I took it down to the pawn shop on Main Street this morning. Got $50 for it. $50. She had sold my husband's survival, my one sacred piece of his memory, my good luck charm. She had sold him for gas money. That was the moment. The floor didn't just crack, it fell away. The grieving, confused widow I had been, she was gone. She died right there in that ransacked room, and in her place, someone else stood up. Someone cold and quiet and absolutely clear. I wasn't crying anymore. The tears just stopped. The part of me that could be broken by them had shattered, and it left something hard and cold in its place. Jenna must have seen my face go blank. She mistook that icy calm for shock, for defeat. She actually smirked, a cruel, satisfied little twist of her lips. Oh, is it finally sinking in, Clara? She said, her voice dripping with triumph. Are you finally understanding that you don't get a vote? You can't do anything. Ben, who looked like a hollowed-out shell, finally spoke. Jenna, don't. Just don't. Don't what, Ben? She snapped, not even looking at him. She needs to understand her position. You can't call the police, Clara. You can't kick us out. In fact, you are the one who's trespassing. My head tilted. What did you say? That family financial plan we had you sign? 2 years ago, she said, ticking points off on her fingers. When we were helping you get your affairs in order after Arthur died, that wasn't just some friendly advice, Clara. That was a durable power of attorney. A very aggressive one. My lawyer drafted it. It's ironclad. She took a step closer, savoring the moment. It means we make the decisions now. About your assets. About this house. About what's clutter and what's not. It's all legally under Ben's control. And Ben, well, he does what I say. It's all perfectly 100% legal. She smiled. A full, genuine smile of victory. She had planned this for years. She had waited for me to be at my weakest, used my grief against me, and now she was here to collect. I looked at her. I looked at my son, who was just a pathetic shadow, hiding behind this monster. And I nodded. Just once. "You're right, Jenna," I said. My voice was so quiet, she had to lean in. "I do remember that plan." I reached into my purse, right past my useless bus ticket, and pulled out my cell phone. My hand wasn't shaking, not even a little. Jenna's smile faltered, just a bit. "Who are you calling? The cops? I told you, it's legal. They can't do anything." I ignored her. I pressed 2 on my speed dial. It rang twice. A man's voice answered, professional and sharp. "Law offices of Andy Price." "Hello, Andy," I said, my voice as calm and clear as a winter morning. "It's Clara Wilson. Yes, I'm fine." I paused, holding Jenna's gaze. Her eyes had gone from triumphant to confused, and now, a little flicker of fear. "I'm afraid," I said into the phone. "It's time." I hung up. The silence in the room was absolute. Even the movers outside had gone quiet. Jenna's face was a mask of confusion. That ironclad certainty was gone, replaced by a darting, nervous energy. What? What was that? Who's Andy? "Ben knows," I said, my voice flat. "Don't you, Ben?" Ben was shaking his head, his face ashen. "Mom, please. Andy Price? Dad's lawyer?" "Why? Why would you call him?" "Because," I said, "your father and I weren't fools. We just thought we were protecting our assets from strangers. It never, in a million years, occurred to us we'd have to protect them from you." Jenna let out a high-pitched, hysterical laugh. "Oh, please, a small-town lawyer? My attorney will eat him alive. That POA is a done deal, Clara. You're finished." "Andy's office. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., I said. "He'll be sending you an email." I turned and walked, not to my bedroom, but to the guest room, the only one they hadn't touched yet. I closed the door, wedged a chair under the knob, and sat in the dark, waiting for morning. The next morning, walking into Andy Price's office felt like breathing clean air for the first time in years. His office was on the top floor of the old stone bank building downtown, all dark wood, leather books, and the quiet, expensive hum of serious money. I sat on one side of his massive desk, with Andy beside me. Ben and Jenna sat on the other, in 2 small, hard-backed chairs. They looked rumpled. Jenna had tried to dress the part, in a sharp blazer, but her hair was a mess, and she couldn't stop her leg from bouncing. Ben just looked like a man being led to his own execution. Andy Price was everything Arthur had loved in a man. All business, sharp as a tack, and absolutely zero patience for nonsense. He was in his 60s, with a crisp white shirt and eyes that could find a lie from a mile away. He steepled his fingers and looked at Jenna. "Mrs. Wilson," he began, his voice smooth and professional. "I've had a look at the document your attorney drafted. The durable power of attorney you had Mrs. Tillman sign 2 years ago. It is, as you said on the phone, very aggressive." Jenna sat up straighter, a flicker of that smug confidence returning. "See, I told you. It's ironclad. We have—" "I'm not finished," Andy said, and his voice dropped a degree. Jenna's mouth snapped shut. "It's a powerful document," Andy continued. "It gives your husband broad authority. However," that beautiful, wonderful word. "However," Andy swiveled his chair to a file cabinet and pulled out a thick, leather-bound binder. He placed it on the desk with a heavy, definitive thud. On the spine, in gold lettering, it read, "The Arthur Wilson Family Trust." "You seem to have forgotten, Mrs. Wilson," Andy said, "that the family financial plan you so generously enrolled your mother-in-law in was a two-way street." He opened the binder. "You didn't just get a POA from Clara. You convinced her to enter into a joint trust, to simplify things, to pool resources for the future. Those were your words, I believe? My paralegal took excellent notes at the time." Jenna's face was going pale. What does that mean?" "It means," Andy said, sliding a single sheet of paper across the desk, "that to help Clara, you and Ben legally tied your own primary assets to hers, your home, your joint checking and savings, your investment portfolios, all as collateral to show good faith in your management of her estate." But, Ben stammered, "that was to protect her." "Exactly," Andy said, "and the trust is written to do just that, to protect Clara. Which brings us to the clause on page 84, subsection D. The default clause. He tapped the paper. In the event that any administrator that would be you, Ben acts in a way that is grossly negligent or intentionally detrimental to the financial health of another member, like, say, attempting to illegally liquidate her primary residence and sell her possessions without her written consent, the other administrator. He paused and looked at me. That would be Clara, is given. And I quote, immediate and total authority to freeze, secure, and liquidate the defaulting party's assets to make the trust whole. The silence that followed was the most beautiful sound I had ever heard. Jenna just stared. She looked from the paper, to Andy, to me. Her mouth opened and closed. That's not legal, she finally whispered. It's not just legal, Mrs. Wilson, Andy said. It was your idea. You were just so focused on what you could get that you never read what you were giving. You handed Clara the keys to your kingdom, thinking you were stealing hers. You trapped me, she breathed, staring at me. No, Jenna, I said, finally finding my voice. You trapped yourself. I just let you. And then, as if on cue, Jenna's phone buzzed on the desk. And buzzed again. And again. A cascade of bank alerts. Andy leaned back in his chair. Ah, yes. That would be my associate. As of 10:05 a.m., per Mrs. Tillman's signed instructions, your accounts are frozen. Your credit cards are declined. And a lien is being placed on your home. That was the checkmate. Jenna's phone didn't just buzz, it screamed, a furious, vibrating shriek against the polished wood of Andy's desk. She snatched it up. Her thumb swiped frantically, her eyes darting across the screen. Her face, which had been pale with confusion, turned a new, blotchy shade of red. It's zero, she whispered. Then she looked up, her eyes wide with a wild animal panic. It's zero! The checking is empty! The savings, it's all gone! You can't do that! She didn't just say it, she shrieked it, her voice cracking, half rising from her chair. I finally looked at her. Really looked at her, not as my daughter-in-law, but as a cornered stranger. Oh, I can, Jenna, I said. My voice was quiet, but it cut right through her shriek and left silence in its wake. I just did. That's for the attempted theft, for the U-Haul, for the new locks, for the 2 men you paid to carry my life out the front door. The POA, she screamed, finding her voice again. She was desperate now. The power of attorney. It gives us control. We'll sue you. We'll sue him. We'll take everything. We'll sell the house tomorrow. Andy, who had been watching this with the detached patience of a doctor, held up a single, calming hand. Mrs. Wilson, please. Shouting won't change the facts. He leaned forward, tapping the thick, leather-bound binder. You've been so focused on the POA, you're obsessed with it. But it's just a piece of paper, and frankly, it's not a very good one. Ben, who had been staring at his hands, finally looked up, his eyes red and raw. What? What do you mean? I mean, Ben, Andy said, that the power of attorney you and your wife used is completely and utterly worthless for its primary purpose. It's a lovely document if you want to pay your mother's cable bill, but it could never, not in a million years, have given you this house. Jenna's mouth opened, then closed. Andy continued, his voice the only sound in the room. Your father, Ben, was a very smart man, and he loved your mother very much. He saw how hard she worked, how much that house meant to both of you. So 10 years ago, long before he got sick, he and I sat in this very office, and we placed 124 Oak Street into the Arthur Wilson Irrevocable Trust. He let the words hang in the air. An irrevocable trust, Mrs. Wilson, he said, aiming this directly at Jenna, who looked like she couldn't breathe. Means just that. It cannot be broken. It cannot be touched by debt. It cannot be seized in a lawsuit. And it cannot be sold, managed, or in any way affected by a flimsy, last-minute power of attorney, especially one drafted by your cousin's law school roommate, from what I can tell. He turned a page in the binder. The house was never part of Clara's assets for you to manage. It has been sitting in a legal fortress for a decade, completely and totally safe. Jenna just stared. The blood had drained from her face. She had been outplayed, outsmarted by a man who had been dead for 3 years. The trust, Andy continued, has only 2 administrators, Clara, and you, Ben. And it has a very specific clause. The primary administrator, Clara Wilson, is the only party who cannot be removed from the trust, short of her own death. He paused, put on his reading glasses, and looked directly at Ben. The secondary administrator can be removed, with cause. Andy took his glasses off and placed them on the desk, attempting to illegally sell the primary asset of the trust, hiring movers to empty it, changing the locks on the primary administrator, committing, and I'll be blunt, theft. I would say that qualifies as cause, wouldn't you? He turned his gaze to me. Clara, I looked at my son, who was weeping silently with his head in his hands, a pathetic, hollowed-out man who had let this vulture convince him to sell his own soul, starting with his father's dog tag. I had a choice. I could be the mother. I could be kind. I could forgive. I looked at Jenna. I saw the greed, the resentment, the pure, ugly entitlement, and I knew she would never, ever stop. He's out, I said. Ben's head snapped up. Mom, he's out, I said again, this time to Andy. He is disinherited. Get him off the trust. Get her. Out of my life. Jenna made a small, strangled sound in the back of her throat. It was the sound of someone who had just lost everything. She hadn't just failed to get my house. She had just lost her house, her money, and her entire future in one clean cut. They were, in every sense of the word, ruined. The word ruined just hung there, in the expensive, quiet air of the office. Jenna was the first to move. She didn't scream, not at first. She made a sound, a low, guttural noise from the back of her throat, like a trapped animal. She turned, her eyes landing on Ben, who was still just a pile of broken pieces in his chair. You, she spat. Her voice was pure venom. You, weak, pathetic boy. This is your fault. You couldn't even manage your own mother. You told me she was weak. You told me she was stupid. She lunged at him, grabbing the front of his shirt. You ruined me. Andy stood up so fast his chair scraped the floor. Mrs. Wilson, that's enough. Jenna just laughed, a sound that cracked in the middle. She let go of Ben, shoving him back. She looked at me, her face a terrifying mask of rage. You old bitch! You think you've won? You can have him. You can have this stupid backwards town. She was already backing out of the door, grabbing her purse. She was a rat fleeing a ship she herself had sunk. You will rot in that house, alone. And then she was gone. The door slammed shut, the echo bouncing off the thick wood panels. The silence that was left was worse. It was just me, Andy, and my son. Ben didn't move. He just sat there, his head in his hands, his shoulders shaking with silent, racking sobs. He had just lost his wife, his money, his home, his inheritance, and the last shred of his dignity, all in the space of 10 minutes. He was at absolute, total rock bottom. He finally looked up at me, and his face. He wasn't a man. He was just a terrified child. His eyes were red, swollen, and full of a shame so deep it was all he was. I waited. I said nothing. I just waited. His first word was a croak. Mom. I didn't answer. He swallowed, trying to get his breath. The tag, he whispered. Dad's tag. That was it. Not the money, not my house, not what am I going to do. His first, true, coherent thought was the dog tag. A tiny, microscopic flicker of something stirred in me. Not forgiveness, not love, just a fact. He had remembered the one thing that mattered. I looked at Andy. He nodded, a silent, it's your call, and turned to discreetly look at the books on his shelf, giving us the room. I turned back to my son. I am not pressing charges, I said. His head snapped up, his eyes suddenly wild with a desperate, pathetic hope. Do not, I said, my voice as cold and sharp as a scalpel. Mistake that for forgiveness. I am not doing it for you. I am doing it for your father's memory. He's been through enough. I will not have his name, or yours, dragged through a criminal court. The hope in his eyes died. Yes, Mom, he whispered. She, I said, nodding toward the door Jenna had slammed, is gone. I am filing a restraining order. You will never speak her name to me again. You will never see her again. She is a non-entity. Do you understand me? He nodded, tears streaming down his face. Yes, I know. You have one chance. His breath hitched. This is not for the trust, I said. That's gone. You are disinherited. That is final. This is not for the money. That's frozen, and it will be used to pay Andy, to pay for the damage, and to pay for the debts you created. This is for you, for the shred of a man your father raised that might still be in there. Somewhere. I reached into my purse. I pulled out a small piece of paper from my notepad. On it was the address. Pawn and More, 128 Main Street. I didn't hand it to him. I dropped it on the table in front of him. This is the pawn shop. You will go there. You will get Arthur's dog tag back. I don't care what it costs. I don't care what you have to do. You will not eat. You will not sleep. You will not breathe. Until that tag is back in your hand. You will get a job. You will get 3 jobs. You will wash dishes. You will mop floors. You will work until your hands bleed, and you will buy it back. He just stared at the paper. And that $50,000 in debt you and she racked up, I continued. The debt that made you so desperate you decided to rob your own mother? That's still your debt. You will pay off every single penny of it. Alone. You will not declare bankruptcy. You will not run. You will face what you did. You will clean up your own mess. I stood up. The meeting was over. He looked up at me, his face a ruin. Mom, I don't, how? You'll figure it out, I said. You're a grown man. Start acting like one. I gave him one last look. Your father's memory is on that pawn shop counter, Ben. You have one chance. I turned, and for the first time in my life, I walked out of a room, and I left my son behind. I left him in that office. I didn't wait for him. I walked out into the sunshine, took a deep breath of the downtown air, and I didn't look back. I went home. I called a locksmith a new one and had every lock on my property changed. I had the U-Haul company come and get their truck, and I billed the new, frozen trust account for their time. And that night, in my own bed, in my own quiet, safe-again house, I slept. For the first time in years, I really, truly slept. The next year was quiet, and in that quiet, I found me again. 1 year later, almost to the day, my backyard was full of laughter. The smell of charcoal and grilled burgers hung in the hot July air, mixing with the scent of my peonies. My best friend, Mary, was arguing with our neighbor Jim about a baseball score. 2 other friends were sitting with me on the patio, their glasses clinking, their faces happy. It was my annual backyard BBQ. A tradition Arthur and I had started, and one I had let slide in the years after he passed. But not this year. This year, my house was full of people who loved me, full of good food, full of peace. I leaned back in my patio chair, the sun warm on my face, and just listened. This was my life. The one I had built. The one I had reclaimed. Miles away, in a different part of town, in a small, rented apartment, a man pushes a lawnmower across a tiny, patchy square of grass. He's thinner. His clothes are simple work boots, jeans, a faded t-shirt, dark with sweat. It's Ben. He finishes the lawn, wipes his face on his sleeve, and sits on the crumbling concrete step. He looks exhausted. But it's a different kind of tired. Not the weary, anxious exhaustion of a man living a lie. It's the bone-deep, physical exhaustion of a man who just finished a 12-hour shift at a warehouse and is now mowing his landlord's lawn for a break on the rent. He reaches under his shirt and pulls out a chain. On it is a single silver dog tag. It's dull, worn, and it's his. He wears it, not as a trophy, not as a symbol of forgiveness. He wears it like a weight, a promise, a reminder of the man his father was, and the man he, at 41 years old, was finally, painfully, trying to become. He hasn't been back to my house. He calls, sometimes, once a month. A short, formal, "Hello, Mom," just checking in. I'm working. He doesn't ask for forgiveness. He doesn't ask for money. He just reports. And I just say, "I'm glad to hear you're working, Ben," and we hang up. Back at my house, the party is winding down. My friends help me clear the dishes, and I'm left alone on my patio, watching the fireflies start to glitter in the dusk. My phone buzzes. An Uber. Your driver is 2 minutes away. I go inside. I walk to my bedroom. My suitcase is packed. It's been packed for a week. I check my purse. Wallet. Keys. Medication. Bus ticket. And this time, I reach for the dog tag, my husband's dog tag, the one my son had bought back from the pawn shop with his first grueling paycheck and mailed to me in a small, padded envelope with no note. I fasten it around my neck. It's cool against my skin. I pick up my suitcase. I walk out my front door, lock it, and get in the waiting car. This time, the driver is chatty, but I don't mind. This time, I'm not nervous. This time, I make it all the way to the bus depot, and I get on. As that bus pulled away from the station, I finally looked forward, toward the open road, and for the first time in a long, long time, I smiled. Clara learned that day that true strength wasn't just about protecting her house, it was about protecting her peace. The betrayal didn't break her, it woke her up. It forced her to stop being the grieving widow and become the woman she always was, strong, smart, and in charge of her own life. She learned that sometimes the hardest boundaries are the ones we have to set with the people we love the most, and that tough love isn't about punishment, it's about responsibility. She gave her son the only gift that mattered, the consequence of his own actions and the long, hard road to earning his self-respect back. So let me ask you, if life and the people in it tried to tell you that your chapter was over, would you have the courage to pick up the pen and write a brand new one? If this story resonated with you, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear what you would have done in Clara's position. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories about finding strength in the hardest of times. We'll see you in the next one.